They had a name for it long before they understood it. Ma Rung, ghosts of the jungle. On the sixth night, the Viet Cong platoon commander could feel them again. His men lay in shallow scrapes along the narrow trail, rifles pointed into the darkness, eyes raw from staring into green shadow. The jungle around them was still, too still. No frog calls from the creek, no cicadas, only the slow drip of water from leaves and the faint rasp of breath inside throats gone dry. They had moved at night for 2 days now, avoiding known tracks, changing routes, doubling back. Still, the feeling clung to them. Something was watching. A week earlier, a courier group had vanished on this same network of trails. No firefight, no shell craters, no witnesses. 12 men and their loads gone, records listing them as missing, presumed killed by unknown reconnaissance element. Rumors spread faster than orders. The Australians. One of his sergeants whispered on day 3. The 4-man patrols. They wait, they watch. They stay 7 days, sometimes more. If they find you during those days, you do not go home. The commander did not believe in ghosts. He believed in fieldcraft, in discipline, in the weight of exhaustion grinding men down. Yet as the night dragged toward dawn, he looked at the faces around him, drawn, pale, eyes sunk into skulls after a week in the jungle, and he knew something else was at work. Fear. Not of artillery, not of helicopters, not of American air power. Fear of small patrols that came into their world and stayed. 7 days at a time. Silent, patient, invisible. This is the story of the Australian SAS patrol cycle in Vietnam and what it meant to survive a full 7-day tour in the green hell the enemy once believed only they could endure.
Phuoc Tuy Province, South Vietnam. Triple canopy jungle so dense the sun was a rumor on the forest floor. Vines bound trees together into a living wall. The air did not move. It pressed down, wet and heavy, wrapping itself around skin, into lungs, into clothing that never dried. By 0800, the temperature was pushing 32 degrees Celsius. Humidity hovered at 85%. Sweat did not bead and roll away. It soaked, stayed, and rotted. Boots stayed wet for days. Feet swelled and softened. Skin peeled from constant friction. Fungal infections spread in the warm darkness between cloth and flesh. Insects filled every gap the enemy left. Mosquitoes carried malaria and dengue. Leeches slid unseen into boots, collars, groins. You did not waste time pulling them away. You burned them or salted them and kept moving. The jungle changed sound the way water bends light. A snapped twig a meter away might vanish in the chorus of insects. A misplaced step on dead bamboo could sound like a rifle shot. For an SAS patrol, this was not background. This was the main threat. 7 days in this environment without relief meant clothes permanently wet, skin ulcering at pack straps and boot rims, sleep broken into 90-minute fragments at best, every calorie earned through weight on your back. The jungle did not care who entered it, Australian, American, Viet Cong. It treated them the same. It softened their feet, thinned their patience, and tested the edges of their discipline. For a 7-day patrol, the jungle was not a place you moved through. It was a character, indifferent, unforgiving, always pressing in. Most foreign soldiers came into this world loudly. American doctrine walked into Vietnam with the weight of World War II and Korea behind it. Large patrols, platoons and companies moving along trails, helicopters slashing overhead, artillery on call, radios buzzing, metal clinking, boots crashing through undergrowth, fire bases carved out of jungle, landing zones cleared by explosives. It was a style that worked when the enemy could be fixed and crushed. In Phuoc Tuy, it meant something else. It meant the Viet Cong heard you coming from hundreds of meters away. They slipped off the trail, watched you pass, or waited with carefully sighted machine guns and recoilless rifles. American units found themselves ambushed, bled, or firing into empty jungle where ghosts had been minutes before. The Australians brought another way. They had their own conventional infantry, but the Special Air Service Regiment did not fight like that. 4 to 6 men. No radio chatter beyond short-coded bursts. No clatter of equipment. No shouted orders. They carried what they could live on for a week. 7 days of rations, water purification, 300 rounds of ammunition, a single radio, medical kit, claymores, nothing more. American Green Berets trained local forces, ran cross-border operations, and hit targets with combined firepower. Navy SEALs darted in and out with speed and violence. Long-range reconnaissance patrols, LRRPs, learned stealth the hard way. The SAS were different again. Their entire existence in Vietnam was built around the long, silent patrol. 7 days deep. No support expected. No margin for error. The Viet Cong saw the distinction clearly. Captured directives warned. When American forces approach, avoid their artillery and aircraft or withdraw as necessary. When Australian reconnaissance forces are believed to be present, avoid contact entirely. Their movement cannot be detected. Their ambushes occur without warning. For the enemy, the jungle was home, until another force arrived that learned to live in it longer, quieter, and with more discipline than most believed humanly possible.
The Australian Special Air Service Regiment, SASR, formally stood up in 1957. Its lineage traced back to the British SAS Raiders of North Africa, but its real apprenticeship came later, in the deep green of Malaya and Borneo. There, Australian and British patrols hunted communist insurgents in jungle terrain not unlike Vietnam. They learned that big unit tactics were noise, that helicopters were useful but not essential, that the side which mastered tracking, patience, and silence could dominate an enemy who believed the terrain was theirs. By the time SASR rotated into Vietnam in 1966, its doctrine was clear. Small patrols, deep penetration, intelligence before kills, fire only when advantage was absolute. Selection and training drove that doctrine into bone. Candidates were pushed beyond exhaustion, then asked to think clearly, navigate accurately, and lead others. Tracking was taught until footprints and disturbed leaves read like text on a page. Radio drills became automatic. Medical skills were spread across every man, not left to one specialist. Behind all of it sat an unspoken rule, one that shaped how every mission was planned. 7 days. A standard load was built around a week of independence. 7 days of combat rations, sometimes stretched to 9 with careful rationing. 7 days of water carried, then topped off by purification pills and faith in filters. 7 days of movement, observation, and decision-making under constant threat. The 7-day rule was not written in any field manual. It was the invisible clock every patrol commander carried in his head. Day 1, strong. Day 3, the jungle is in your pores. Day 5, exhaustion is constant. Day 7, you are operating at the edge of human endurance and still expected to be professional. You stand on the edge of the clearing, pack biting into your shoulders. Pre-dawn, the helicopter that dropped you has already faded into the distance, rotor noise swallowed by jungle. For a brief moment, there is silence.
the heavy, waiting kind. Then the insects resume. The jungle forgets. You do not. On your back is everything you will need for the next 7 days. Rations, 7 24-hour packs stripped of packaging, compressed into plastic bags. Water, several liters carried, more to be purified on the way. Ammunition, 300 rounds for your rifle, more distributed for the patrol's machine gun. Claymores, flat, curved mines that will anchor any ambush you are ordered to set. Radio, its weight shared, batteries packed, codes memorized. Your uniform is already damp. It will not dry again. The patrol leader gives a hand signal. You step off. Movement is not a march. It is a controlled slide into another world. Point man 5 meters ahead, scanning for tripwires, disturbed soil, unnatural angles in branches. Second man covering the flanks. Third with the radio, eyes up as much as on the set. Patrol commander floating where he can see all arcs at once. Spacing 3 to 5 meters, elastic but drilled. You move 300 to 500 meters an hour, sometimes less. Every step is tested before weight is committed. Your boots roll onto the side of the foot, avoiding dead bamboo, dry twigs, stone that might slip. The patrol halts often. You listen. Birds, insects, distant, muffled voices perhaps. Wind in the canopy? Minutes stretch. On day 1, you are alert, sharp, every sense tuned. On day 3, your shoulders ache constantly. On day 5, your shirt is a second skin of salt and grime. On day 7, you are hollowed out, powered by habit and the man in front of you. But the standard does not change. Noise discipline remains absolute. Fire discipline remains ruthless. Stealth remains non-negotiable. The 7-day rule does not care how you feel. It only cares that you are still capable of doing the job when the clock runs down.
The patrol's task is simple on paper. Insert. Locate a suspected Viet Cong base complex near a river bend. Observe for as long as possible within the patrol cycle. Report strength, routines, supply routes. They move for 2 days before they see it. A wisp of smoke, barely visible through the trees. The faint murmur of voices below the insect noise. The smell, wood smoke and boiled rice, drifting on the barely there breeze. The patrol halts. The commander studies the ground, the slope, the patterns of light. He picks a position on elevated terrain, 300 meters from the camp, screened by thick vegetation and natural folds in the earth. The observation post is built for endurance, not comfort. A shallow scrape, carefully trimmed vegetation placed back over the top, camouflage nets broken with local foliage. For the next 4 days, this will be home. 2-man watch while 2 rest. 4-hour shifts, though time blurs. No fires, no talking, hand signals only. Through binoculars and iron sights, they build a picture. Approximately 45 enemy personnel, AK-47s, a few old French rifles, at least 1 light machine gun. Routine, stand to at dawn and dusk, training in the clearing during the day. Sentries rotated every 2 hours. Supply, rice sacks dragged in along a narrow track from the northwest. Ammunition crates delivered by boat twice in 4 days. At night, the radio comes alive for minutes, never more. Short, encoded reports compressed into small windows of transmission to avoid direction finding. A patrol marker, a strength report, grid references. Then silence again. By day 4, the physical toll is clear. Everyone is thinner. Faces have hollowed. Lips are cracked. Tropical ulcers form where webbing rubs raw skin. Sleep never drops deep enough, Every man wakes from shallow dozes with heart racing at some imagined sound. The 7-day rule presses down. They know they can only maintain this standard for so long before mistakes creep in. A careless movement, a flash of glass, a cough at the wrong time. On day 5, mission complete, they slip away. Stealthy exfiltration along a route chosen to avoid predictable lines. 2 days later, artillery falls on the camp they watched, guided by information collected by 4 men who spent almost a week lying still in the dirt. From a captured Viet Cong after-action report in that sector, enemy bombarded our base camp with accurate fire. No reconnaissance was detected before the attack. Our security patrols reported no contact. We suspect invisible Australian reconnaissance elements are operating in this area. Recommend increased vigilance, but we do not know how to find them. For the SAS patrol, it was just one 7-day cycle among many. 7. Fire discipline philosophy. Fire discipline was not a slogan. It was survival. In the confines of a 7-day patrol, ammunition was finite, resupply unlikely. Every shot risked compromise. Every firefight risked casualties that could not be evacuated quickly. You might lie within 30 meters of an enemy soldier, weapons steady, sights settled on the back of his head, and not fire. Not because of mercy, because of mission. An SAS veteran interviewed decades later described it quietly. You often had the perfect shot. That was the hard part. You wanted to take it, but you were not there for that one man. You were there for the grid, the roots, the bigger picture. Our job was to own the ground, not the body count. Doctrinally, the Australians understood something many larger formations struggled with. In guerrilla war, intelligence was more valuable than individual kills. Dead soldiers could be replaced. Supply routes and dislocations, once exposed, could not be hidden so easily. The 7-day rule made that philosophy personal. You had enough ammunition to defend yourself, to break contact, to conduct a planned ambush. You did not have the luxury of impulsive engagements. Every bullet fired meant extra weight you had carried through heat and humidity. Every engagement meant risk to a patrol that could not be reinforced for days. So you waited. You watched enemy units move past kill zones you could have triggered in an instant. You memorized details instead. Numbers, weapons, load-bearing, direction of march. At night, that information moved up the chain, where it shaped battalion-level operations and artillery planning. When you did fire, it was because conditions were exact, ambush geometry correct, fields of fire overlapping, withdrawal routes scouted, support options known. Then, the restraint of days became seconds of controlled, overwhelming violence.
Day 4 of another patrol cycle. The team has been shadowing a narrow trail used irregularly by Viet Cong couriers. Tracks suggest small groups, boot prints spaced evenly, weight distributed as if under moderate loads, feet familiar with the path. No fresh sign of heavy weapons. The patrol commander decides. Hand signals ripple down the line. An L-shaped ambush. Claymores set on the long axis, overlapping kill zones. Riflemen positioned to cover the flanks and rear. One man angled to fire along the short leg, preventing escape. Fields of fire rehearsed in whispers and gestures, every sector known. Then, waiting. 18 hours pass. Ants crawl across your neck, biting. Mosquitoes whine at ears and eyes. You do not move. Muscles cramp, then burn, then settle into a dull ache that becomes part of the background. Near dusk, they appear. 3 men first, reconnaissance element. Careful, but not careful enough. 10 minutes later, the main party, 9 more, bent under packs. The lead man carries an AK-47, Others haul rice bags, ammunition boxes, tubes wrapped in oilcloth that can only be mortar rounds or rockets. They file into the kill zone, one by one. The commander waits until the last man crosses an invisible line. His thumb tightens on the claymore clacker. 3. 2. 1. The jungle erupts. Claymores spew steel balls down the axis of the trail. Rifles bark in disciplined short bursts. No shouting, no screams from the Australians. Just the mechanical rhythm of drilled fire plans. 4 seconds. Then silence. Security arcs snap back out. 2 men move quickly into the kill zone, stepping over bodies, checking for movement. Weapons are collected. Packs are cut open. Maps, codes, documents, route schedules. All of it goes into the patrol's own bags. They are gone within 6 minutes. Drift back into the jungle, doubling their track, breaking sign, moving toward a pre-planned exfiltration route. A captured VC report later describes the incident tersely. Our supply detachment was destroyed by Australian ghosts. 12 comrades lost. No enemy bodies, no abandoned weapons. They attacked without warning and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Morale within the unit has been affected. Some cadres refuse to move at night in sectors where Australians are believed present. For the men of the patrol, it is only one phase of the week. The weight of captured documents adds to already heavy packs. Their shoulders burn. Feet are raw inside wet boots. 3 days remain in the cycle. They have to endure all of them. Sometimes the jungle turns. Day 6. The patrol is moving along a spur line, contouring around a hill. The air feels wrong, too still, too quiet. Birds that should call at this hour are silent. The patrol commander raises a fist. Everyone freezes. You kneel, rifle up, scanning the green. Then you see it. A boot print on the trail behind you, not one of yours. Edges sharp, soil still moist, slightly smaller than the standard Viet Cong sandal impression, deeper at the heel. A tracker, moving quickly. Without a word, the patrol breaks contact, not by running, but by sliding sideways off the anticipated line of retreat. They move into a drainage, then into thicker scrub, where visibility drops to mere meters. The commander chooses a hide. Shallow depressions, thick overhead cover, lines of sight limited, but that is acceptable. The objective now is not information, it is survival. You lie down, body pressed into the earth. Leaves and branches are eased over you, the smallest movements smoothed. Rifle angled along a narrow arc. Finger on the trigger, but the instruction is clear. Do not fire unless discovered. Minutes pass. Then, voices. 20 meters away. 10. Feet slosh through damp soil. A man coughs. Someone mutters an instruction. You can hear the metallic rattle of an assault rifle being adjusted. Through a slit in the foliage, you see them. Viet Cong search party. Weapons up, nervous, moving in a loose line. Their eyes pass over your position, see only shadows and leaves. One man steps so close you can see the sweat running down his neck. You do not move. You do not scratch the insect on your face. You do not flinch as a line of soldier ants discovers your wrist, bites, and marches on. Every instinct screams to swat, to shift, to breathe more deeply. Training pins you in place. For 3 hours, the search pattern pulses back and forth. Sometimes they are close, sometimes distant. Once a pair of them argue quietly, gesturing deeper into the jungle. Finally,
The sound begins to recede. The patrol does not rise. They wait another 2 hours, letting distance grow, giving fatigue time to eat at their pursuer's aggression. Only when the commander is satisfied do they begin to move, not toward immediate extraction, but back on a dogleg course toward the original area of interest. Later, an SAS trooper would recall, "We knew they were hunting us. We could hear it in their voices. But if we had run, they would have chased, and sooner or later someone would have made a mistake. So we did what we always did. We trusted the drills, became part of the ground, and let them rush past." 3 days later, the patrol steps off the pickup helicopter, 7-day cycle complete. No casualties. Intelligence gathered. Enemy never sure how close they had come.
The physical impact of SAS patrols could be measured in destroyed caches, disrupted supply lines, bodies counted when the jungle allowed. The psychological impact leaked through captured documents and later interviews with former Viet Cong. One provincial directive from 1967 warned bluntly, "Australian reconnaissance forces represent the primary threat in Phước Tuy Province. Their capability exceeds that of American special forces. They move without sound. They observe for many days. We cannot detect them with normal methods. All units must avoid establishing patterns when Australians are believed operating in sector." Another report, recovered after an ambushed courier unit, noted, "We suspect the Australians remain in our controlled areas for 7 days at a time or longer. During this period, any movement may be observed. Recommend reducing activity, using alternate trails, and suspending large movements while their presence is suspected." In interviews years after the war, former Viet Cong officers spoke with a mix of frustration and respect. A platoon commander remembered, "We could hear the Americans. We could smell their cooking. We knew when they came. With the Australians, there was nothing. No warning, only suddenly dead comrades, or an artillery barrage that should have been impossible without reconnaissance. Our men were not afraid of fighting. They were afraid of not knowing when they were being watched." For fighters who had built their identity around mastering the jungle, the idea of foreign patrols living inside it for 7 days at a time, undetected, was corrosive. The 7-day rule was not just an internal planning factor. It became in enemy minds a span of time during which the province itself felt unsafe, a shadow period when any trail might be under observation, any camp under glass. The hunters had learned they were being hunted by men who could endure the same terrain for the same length of time, and sometimes longer. Between 1966 and 1971, Australian SAS patrols in Phước Tuy Province conducted more than 1,200 missions. At any given time, no more than 50 to 60 SAS soldiers were in the field, less than 1% of the total Australian force in Vietnam. Yet their impact was disproportionate. Estimated enemy killed, around 492. Prisoners captured, over 100. SAS soldiers killed in action, 3. Kill ratio, approximately 164 to 1. Those numbers speak to tactical superiority, but they do not show the thousands of enemy movements redirected, the supply routes abandoned, the base camps shifted under pressure of unseen observation. Nor do they show the hidden cost on the men who produced those statistics. Weeks of their lives spent in 7-day blocks, each patrol cycle compressing time into a mix of exhaustion, silence, and tension.
For every confirmed contact, there were dozens of missions where no shots were fired, where the only weapons used were optics, patience, and a radio transmitted for minutes across 7 days. You do not come back from a 7-day patrol the same way you left. Physically, the changes are obvious. You step off the helicopter lighter than when you boarded it a week earlier. Your uniform is crusted with salt and mud. Your boots stink and rot. The soles of your feet are softened, whitened,
skin peeling where it has been wet for days. Some men come back with tropical ulcers that will take weeks to heal, others with the early shivers of malaria. Sleep debt is written in the hollow under your eyes. For 7 days you have snatched west in 90-minute slices, never fully letting go, waking at the slightest sound. Even in the relative safety of the rear, it takes time for the body to understand that no one is watching you through leaves. Psychologically, the changes are quieter. An SAS veteran once described it. You get used to living with your senses wide open. Every sound might be important. Every shadow might hide a man with a rifle. When you come back, people think you will want noise and company. What you actually want is distance. Time to narrow your world down again. Another recalled the weight of responsibility. There were only 4 or 5 of you. There was no one else. If you missed a track sign, if you moved too fast, if you fired when you should have waited, your mates died. Not a platoon, not a company. Those 3 faces you had just spent a week with, that sits with you. Yet within that pressure, a specific kind of brotherhood formed. Trust was not an abstract concept. It was the knowledge that the man behind you would catch the small movements you missed, that the radio operator would get the message out under fire, that the patrol commander would not push one day too far when everyone was fraying. 7 days at a time, that trust was tested and reinforced. Back at base, the cycle did not end. There were debriefs, intelligence to pass on, equipment to repair, new patrol plans to absorb. Bodies recovered weight, feet healed, minds rested as much as they could. And then the next 7-day block loomed. Another insertion, another week of humidity, silence, and discipline. This was the real cost, not a single traumatic event, but an accumulation, week after week, year after year, of living on that thin line between perfection and catastrophe. When Australia withdrew its combat forces from Vietnam in 1971, the jungle of Phuoc Tuy began, slowly, to reclaim the old tracks. Camps decayed, fighting pits filled with leaves, observation posts dug by 4-man patrols became anonymous depressions in the earth. Yet the legacy of those 7-day patrol cycles did not fade. Other nations studied SAS operations. American LRRPs, Rangers, SEALs, and later Special Mission Units absorbed the lessons. Small teams, extended reconnaissance, stealth over speed, intelligence over immediate firepower. Modern special operations doctrine carries the imprint of men who learned to live inside enemy-dominated jungle for a week at a time without being detected. For the Viet Cong veterans who fought against them, the memory remained equally sharp. Some spoke of frustration, of carefully planned movements undone by invisible watchers. Others spoke of respect, directed at professionals who did not waste lives, theirs or others, for spectacle. The myth of Maroon, the phantoms of the jungle, was born from that respect, from the realization that for 7-day stretches, these foreign soldiers became part of the same unforgiving environment the Viet Cong had once believed was theirs alone. In the end, the 7-day rule was more than a planning cycle or a logistical framework. It was a test of how long a human being could operate at the edge of exhaustion and still make precise, moral, professional decisions, of how deeply a small group of soldiers could embed themselves in hostile terrain without losing their discipline or their humanity. In the shadows of Phuoc Tuy, they answered that test, 7 days at a time. They moved through the jungle unseen. They watched an enemy who once believed no one could stalk them on their own ground. They carried home the weight of those weeks in silence. In the shadows of Phuoc Tuy, they became ghosts,